A resolution is something you've already become accustomed to because TV and computer companies have boasted higher and higher screen resolutions, and they only seem to be coming out with newer, higher resolutions with each new year. The resolution of a video is talking about the height and width measured in pixels across a screen. The most commonly used size is 4K TV, for example, which comes in at 3,840 pixels in width by 2,160 pixels in height. And they get the name 4K from the fact that horizontally it stretches to almost 4,000 pixels across a particular standard of measurement, or 4K screens. Apple has come out with laptops that are closer to the 4K resolution, and even some case for their larger desktop monitors, they're pushing 5K for higher resolutions. If you ever grew up watching those old analog TVs or you watched TV before it became digitized, the standard viewing resolution was only 480p, or 640 pixels in width by 400 pixels by height. So let's compare that to a 4K modern screen. You can fit up to 8 480p videos inside of a 4K video screen. The thing is, they're now shown on smaller screens. So you're essentially getting up to 8 times the pixels in the same viewing space, making 4K look super sharp and crisp compared to the TV of yesterday. People are demanding higher and higher resolutions out of screens, but also out of online videos. People are no longer putting up with the smaller 480p resolutions because they're streaming more and more 4K videos on Netflix and other streaming apps, making it the new standard of quality. Resolution, just like frame rate, does come at a cost. The higher the resolution or pixel size of your video, the more file size it takes up and the longer it takes to load and buffer online. That means if I show you one of my courses in 4K, 80% of the students with less than stellar internet connection speed would have a really hard time streaming it smoothly because the file size is gigabytes large instead of just megabytes. That is why you see 1080p and some lower resolutions, even 720p, still being used for online streaming, and 720p happens to still be one of the most common resolutions you see online currently. As you can see from this graphic, there's a massive amount of resolutions you can set for your videos based on where you place them. I'm going to go over a few very common resolutions you might see online. Don't worry about writing all these down. You can find this all in the downloadable resource. YouTube. YouTube is pretty straightforward, using a standard 16:9 aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is the dimension or ratio between your width and your height in pixels. So 16:9 is the standard format you see for most videos. Here's a common listing of acceptable resolutions for YouTube using the 16:9 aspect ratio. The most optimal and common size used is 720p, 1080p, and sometimes a bit higher at 1440p. The higher resolution is great for viewing pleasure, but remember when you edit and export files, higher resolutions mean higher file sizes. There is a file size and storage problem that happens when you film and edit and export everything in 4K or higher. Sometimes using smaller 1080p resolutions can help keep those file size down and more reasonable to manage. Let's talk about sizes for Facebook. Let's say you're posting a post and you want to share on a business page or personal page for a quick 30-second video. The current standard resolution now for this is 1280 by 720 or 720p. Once again, your standard aspect ratio, or the ratio between the length and height of the video, is still set to 16:9. You can also do a full portrait or a vertical size video at that same 9:16 aspect ratio, or you can even do a 1:1 ratio, which means it's a square video format. And don't worry, we'll go over that next. Now for Facebook paid ads, you have some similar options. You can also reverse that aspect ratio on the landscape videos we just talked about to make them portrait or vertical in format. This would be simply reversing the ratio from 16:9 to 9:16, and also reversing the pixel sizes. For example, a landscape video in 1080p would be 1920 pixels in width by 1080 pixels in height. If you reverse that to the portrait style format, it would be 1080 pixels in width by 1920 pixels in height. A lot of viewers like to have their phones turned upright in their hand, so having videos that are full screen in portrait mode makes a little sense. In some cases for optimal viewing in mobile formats. So studying where your videos might be viewed and viewed the most will help you in making these sizing decisions. You can post the standard resolution from prior that we talked about, or you have the option of creating a square-sized ad too. Landscape sizes are wider and portrait sizes are taller, but square has the same size and height, making this a unique video format. So your aspect ratio or ratio between your height and width is 1:1. You can see an example of this on the screen here. The minimum resolution for the 1:1 aspect ratio or the square video format is 600 by 600 pixels, but you can also go up to 1080 by 1080 pixels for that higher resolution. You can see the Facebook carousel video ads use this unique square video format as well. Now for Instagram sizes. Instagram has a few special sizing requirements depending on where you might post the video. They also support square, portrait, landscape, and video formats. You'll also notice a similar aspect ratio and resolutions compared to the Facebook requirements. Instagram carousel ads, which are the ads you can swipe and show multiple short video clips, are at the square aspect ratio or 1:1. Also, standard posts can be posted in any of the three formats we just talked about. With the popular Instagram stories, it looks a little bit differently, and you can use landscape, portrait, 16:9 aspect ratios. This is when thinking about how the viewer will see your video is important. Most users I know hold their phones in a vertical or portrait mode on Instagram, making this 9:16 aspect ratio size a more optimal size. Just make sure you're doing a paid story ad to leave a bit of empty space at the bottom for the call to action or swipe up for more information button or area. IGTV is something Instagram has been pushing as their YouTube alternative. They have a similar size requirement of the 16:9 ratio, but videos tend to take up the full screen only in vertical or portrait size. So that 9:16, and remember, people are holding their phones vertically in this app, will work the best. This makes it a bit tough, as not all videos can look good vertically, especially when they might have been filmed horizontally or in landscape mode. This is why taking native video with your phone turned on to vertical mode might help with videos placed here. IGTV is a bit different of a format because the length you can post here is much longer than the maximum length you could post for an Instagram story, making it a unique format for long-form video content for marketers, for example. There's also another aspect ratio that is accepted on Instagram for standard feed posts, and that's the 4:5 aspect ratio, which for a 1080p resolution would be 1080 in width by 1350 in height. This one is a little bit different. It combines the height of the vertical portrait format, but also provides a bit of width from the 1:1 square format. This makes the format that would take up the most screen real estate on a user's screen. This format is not accepted everywhere, so you need to double check before investing in this size video. But for this case, for static posts and images on Instagram and Facebook, this is one of the better, most maximizing real estate screen sizes you can use. You will start to notice a pattern with online social media video requirements, and that the 16:9 or the 9:16 aspect ratio is fairly standard, or even the 1:1 aspect ratio. Once you get used to creating and exporting these file formats, then you'll be well on your way to knowing how to best maximize the space given to you, but also to maintain a nice crisp resolution, showing off your animated motion video work.